You're listening to the Shared Security Podcast, exploring the trust you put in people, apps, and technology, with your host, Tom Eston. In episode 99 for December 16th, 2019, password reuse is still a very large problem. U.S. government recommendations for securing Internet of Things devices, and yet another smart lock device security disaster. If you're like other listeners of this podcast, you care about the privacy and security of our friends and loved ones. And one of the best gifts that you can give is a product that can help provide more peace of mind about our personal data and the wireless devices that we all use each and every day. A gift that you should consider is a Silent Pocket Faraday bag, wallet, or key fob, which is designed to block all wireless signal, providing a stylish way for your friends and family to be more secure. And as a listener of this podcast, you can take 15% off your holiday order right now by using discount code SHAREDSECURITY during checkout at silentpocket.com. Welcome to the Shared Security Weekly Blaze podcast, where we update you on this week's most important cybersecurity and privacy news. These podcasts are published every Monday and are 15 minutes or less, quickly giving you news that you can use. A recent announcement from Microsoft is shining a light on the massive problem of password reuse. Microsoft reported that 44 million Microsoft Azure and Microsoft Services accounts were vulnerable to account hijacking due to the use of compromised passwords that were found in previous data breaches. The Microsoft Identity Threat Research Team had checked billions of valid credentials against lists of cracked or exposed passwords from previous data breaches, which identified 44 million matches, which means that 44 million people may have used the same password not just with their Microsoft account, but for many other services as well. Microsoft did the right thing here and reset the passwords for each vulnerable account, but it goes to show that most people are still reusing passwords and not enabling multi-factor authentication. Microsoft even points out that 99% of identity attacks could have been avoided by enabling multi-factor authentication, which, by the way, is freely available for Microsoft Azure and Microsoft Services accounts. In related news, security firm Hyper released results from a 2.5-year password usage study, which compiled data from over 500 full-time workers across the US and Canada to understand how people use, treat, and manage passwords. Not surprisingly, 72% of people reuse passwords in their personal life, while nearly half, 49%, of employees simply change or add a digit or character to their password when prompted by their company every 90 days, which is when most employers require password changes. The other part of this research I found interesting was that despite that there is technology like password managers, more availability of multi-factor authentication, and even more awareness being spread about the dangers of password reuse, people are still trying to memorize passwords, write them down on paper, or document them in Word docs, emails, and spreadsheets. Most people still have a hard time understanding the technology and tools that we have to help manage passwords, so they are resorting to these bad habits. Now, there have been a lot of progress to eliminate passwords over the last year or so, but we have a long way to go until passwords are eliminated altogether. And to put all of this into perspective, there was a story all over the national media last week about a family's Ring camera that was quote-unquote hacked, where someone used the camera to spy on and speak to an 8-year-old girl in her bedroom. While definitely a scary situation, there are 2 points I want to clarify about this story. First, Ring, as in the company, was not hacked. Ring confirmed that there was no breach of their systems, and the cameras themselves haven't been hacked either. Second, this is a story to highlight the exact problem I'm talking about on this episode, and that is password reuse and how compromised passwords are used to gain access to other apps and even Ring cameras. What most likely happened is that the same username and password that the family set up for their Ring account was the same combination found in one of thousands of databases that are publicly available with credentials and passwords passwords from previous data breaches. Automated tools and scripts are written by attackers to try these username and password combinations on sites like ring.com until they find ones that work. Either that, or someone just simply guessed a weak password on the family's Ring account, or they had their credentials compromised through a phishing attack. Most likely though, password reuse is the culprit. So are you using a password manager and enabling multi-factor authentication so that you don't reuse passwords? If not, it's not too late to start. Do it now, as it's one of my most recommended pieces of advice to prevent becoming a victim of account hijacking due to password reuse. And now a word from our sponsor, Edgewise Networks. The biggest problem in security that remains unsolved are flat networks in cloud and data centers, with unprotected attack paths that allow threats to move laterally to cause data breaches. But microsegmentation using network addresses is complicated and takes too much time. But there's a better approach: Edgewise Zero Trust Auto Segmentation. Edgewise is impossibly simple microsegmentation, delivering results immediately with a security outcome that's provable. At the core of Edgewise Auto Segmentation is Zero Trust Identity, which allows workloads to communicate only after their software identity has been verified. Malicious or unimproved software is no longer allowed to communicate. Identity-based protection provides more coverage with fewer policies to make Edgewise simple to deploy and manage. No changes to the application or network are required. One solution protects virtual machines and containers in the cloud and on-premises. To stop lateral threat movement and prevent breaches, visit edgewise.net for a demo and to see results within minutes. It's the holiday shopping season, and that means it's time for the US government to give us their warnings about all the technology we're about to unwrap for ourselves or purchase for our friends and families. I recommend taking their advice, as they do have some good recommendations that are always good to mention, especially around the holidays. First up is the FBI's recommendation on properly securing Internet of Things devices, Wi-Fi routers, and smart TVs. The basics that we talk about on this podcast all apply. Change default passwords, use complex and unique passwords for all devices, put your smart devices on a separate network that's different than the network that your laptops and mobile devices are on, and change the default privacy settings on your smart TV. In fact, the FBI goes as far to suggest disabling the microphone on your smart TV through the TV settings and putting black tape over the camera. In addition to FBI warnings, the FTC has sent out an advisory targeting parents who are purchasing internet-connected toys this holiday season. The recommendations include finding out if the toy has a camera and microphone, does it record, and do you know when the camera or microphone is on or not? This is so that if one of these devices was compromised, parents can know something is not right and take immediate action. Other questions parents should ask about these toys include: does the toy let your child send emails or connect to social media accounts? Can parents control the toy's setup? And can things like default passwords be easily changed? Lastly, the recommendations note that toy manufacturers are required to comply with COPPA, the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, if the toy collects personal information from anyone under 13 years of age. In these cases, the company is required by law to disclose its privacy practices, ask you, the parent, for consent, have means to protect and secure collected data, and give parents the right to have your child's personal information deleted. Speaking of the Internet of Things devices, here's something to think about before you purchase one of those smart locks to secure your home. Now, everyone knows my relationship with these smart locks, and it's not good. If you don't know what I'm talking about, check out episode 90 of the Weekly Blaze for my very personal story about a smart lock that failed during a hotel that I stayed at this year. But back to this story, there is a smart lock brand called Kiwi that can be easily bypassed according to researchers from security firm F-Secure. The attack works by grabbing the secret key encryption algorithm from the mobile app, which anyone can download from the App Store, and when it communicates over Bluetooth wireless, an attacker can grab the operator password to the door by intercepting the communication. Now, the attacker has to be 10 to 15 meters from the victim to pull this attack off, but it's still a pretty serious issue, especially when we're talking about the security of our home. To make matters worse, like many Internet of Things devices, this smart lock has no ability for it to be updated. So that means if you purchased one of these locks, you will need to either replace it or live with the risk. I don't recommend purchasing any type of smart lock for your home for this very reason. Time after time, these devices are always found to have some type of vulnerability which could leave your home at risk. Until device manufacturers start developing security into their products and allowing them to be updated, it's going to be a very long time before I change my recommendation on these quote-unquote smart locks. That's a wrap for this week's show. Visit our website, sharedsecurity.net, for previous episodes, links to our social media feeds, our YouTube channel, and to sign up for our email newsletter. First-time listener to the podcast? Please subscribe wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And if you like this episode, please share it with friends and colleagues. Thanks for listening, and see you next week for another episode of the Shared Security Weekly Blaze.